Cafe Networking Podcast promotes successful business experts. I'm Tom Rioch, known as the King of Networking, connecting people throughout the world from my podcast studio in Brazil. Joining us today from Chicago, Illinois, Allison Jayne Ewing, author, inspirational speaker, therapist, and emotional freedom technique practitioner. Allison, how can EFT tapping clear the subconscious blocks keeping a person stuck?
Well, EFT tapping or emotional freedom technique is an amazing self-help tool for reducing stress, anxiety, and any peak emotional states. It is something that anyone can do on themselves, and it's very easy to learn. When you tap on these particular acupressure points that are as a part of the EFT tapping regimen, it sends a calming signal to the fight or flight part of your brain, to the amygdala. I always describe it as imagine pouring water on the fire of your strong emotions. That is what this does. So there's lots and lots of research out there based on blood and saliva tests and EEGs studying people's brains when they're doing this tapping. And for whatever reason, tapping on these particular acupressure points does this shut-off mechanism. What the research has shown is that it very quickly puts people into an alpha brainwave state. So for anyone who doesn't know, that's the state you're in when you're in meditation or shavasana and yoga. Most of us, it's the state we go in before we go to sleep at night, that sort of state. That is alpha brainwave. But simply by tapping on your own acupressure points, you can put yourself in that relaxed, calm state. So what happens is it basically will counter condition your stressful thinking and your limited thinking and your fears, your worries, all of those things, because our nervous system is basically like an on-off switch. You can either be in your sympathetic nervous system, which is our high drive, that's a beta brainwave state, that's our fight or flight or stressed out state. Or you can be in what's known as the parasympathetic nervous system, and that's the relaxed, calm nervous system state.
That's what we'd all like to be, right?
That's right.
I'm looking at your site and I see that the EFT provides a pathway to release pent-up emotions and foster a sense of balance. In today's world, I feel, and I think most people feel, there's no balance anymore. It's all tipsy-turvy. So what you're saying is, no, you can bring that mental, emotional relief back.
Exactly. And what's great is because it's something that's literally right at your own fingertips. There's 9 acupressure points based on Chinese medicine.
So it's actually physical tapping.
It is actually physical tapping. You take your fingertips and you tap on these 9 points in order. You kind of can do a round, take a deep breath, check in, see how you feel. If you still feel emotional, keep going, because eventually it's very interesting. It feels like the emotion almost evaporates out of your body. You can be really upset, angry, crying, and you start tapping a few rounds in, it is just gone.
I think I want to pick up on that because sometimes when we think about that, we don't think about that.
Right.
We don't really understand why we're out of balance and why we're frustrated, the emotions, and we don't think we control ourselves.
Right, exactly. And sometimes we don't, right? Because our emotions can overpower us, and then our emotions can drive our behavior sometimes in ways that we later regret. But if you
that's generally the case.
Right? But if you had a tool to just put that fire out of that emotion whenever you were in it, then you would think differently. Actually, what happens is, I'm a bit of a neuroscience nerd. What happens is the blood flows, it constricts to your mid and hindbrain, your emotion centers, when you are upset, angry, frustrated, any of those big emotions. It literally goes away from your frontal lobe. It draws back from your frontal lobe and it all pulls there. So you are stupider when you're angry, or you are stupider when you're in fear. You just are. It's why if a lot of people can maybe relate to, you go to the doctor's office, they start telling you some condition or something, and you walk out of there and you think, what did they just say? Right?
Right.
Because you went into fear. You went into fear and worry, and the blood flowed away from your frontal lobe. And our frontal lobe is our logic, reason, and judgment center part of our brain. So when we're not accessing the frontal lobe, we're not making the best decisions for ourselves.
So
And
really
this,
what you're saying, fear then is not putting water on your emotions. It's actually throwing gasoline.
exactly. And this is a tool that will reduce the fear. One of the things that I think people struggle with the most in our society today is there's a lot of people doing a lot of internal work, and they're finding insight maybe through therapy or through readings or listening podcasts they're listening to, and they're realizing, oh, wait, I self-sabotage because of this, right? Like I overeat because I'm afraid of being seen, let's say, or I overeat because it reminds me of home. You know, I had a client that said that desserts reminded her of home and she was homesick, so she would eat lots of desserts, right? So we can make these connections in our brain, but a lot of times we can't break the emotion that's still driving it. So we keep, even though we know why we're doing it and we know we should be doing differently, we continue to do it anyway.
And to that point, so once we learn the techniques, all right, of emotional freedom technique tapping, it's something that we can do. You help others learn how to do it, but then it's something that actually you're doing to yourself.
Exactly. I make the analogy, it's like going to the dentist versus brushing your teeth, right? So you can learn EFT tapping. Anyone can go to YouTube right now and type in emotional freedom technique tapping for blank, whatever, fear of heights, fear of flying, whatever you are struggling with, worry, stress, anxiety. You will find many videos there and you will learn how to do it like that. It is so easy to learn. You just tap along with them, you get the hang of it, and then you have this amazing tool. Now, the catch is just like you can brush your teeth every day. And I do recommend putting tapping practices in every day. And I'll tell you in a minute how to do that, what I recommend for that. But just like going to the dentist, sometimes when there's a big thing going on in your mouth, you got to go to the dentist. So sometimes when you're tapping on little everyday life stressors, you might come across something bigger, like a client who realized, okay, it's really the sickness that is causing this. So that's when you might want to seek out a practitioner who's going to help you be able to really drill down. A lot of our biggest patterns that keep us stuck, our biggest unhealthy patterns that we keep repeating are tied to childhood wounds or old trauma. And I definitely recommend seeking a practitioner if you have trauma, especially if it's pretty significant trauma, because a practitioner will walk you through the tapping process in a really safe way. We actually start sometimes by
follow through, right? And then not just abandon it once you've learned.
Right, exactly. And so a lot of people, a lot of listeners out there right now are probably thinking, I don't even want to think about my trauma or deal with it. So we actually, as practitioners, start with tapping on the anxiety of dealing with the trauma. And once you tap and you clear this anxious feeling of even wanting to do that work, it becomes easier to do that work. So it's kind of a little baby stepping into doing the work, but that's the healing most people really need, is that deep, childhood or even adulthood wounding traumas that we've all been through. I think the number one cause of PTSD these days is car accidents. And I've tapped so many people on their car accident memory because maybe they were having anxiety. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So how can our listeners find you? How can they find you as an EFT practitioner?
Well, they can find me at my handle, which is inspiredlifetapping.com or Inspired Life Tapping on social media.
Very good. And also on LinkedIn and TikTok.
Yep. TikTok, Instagram, Facebook at Inspired Life Tapping.
Very good. Well, listen, thank you. I feel so relieved today.
Yeah, great. Anyone can also go to my website and there is a how to tap page. So you can find out right away how to do this technique. Like I said, it's easy. Do it in the shower, in the car, when you are on the phone with a friend. Anytime you're already ruminating on your problems in life, it's a great time to apply the tapping right then, and you will start to change your life.
Very good. Thanks again for being here.
Thanks for having me.
And again, for our listeners, it's Allison Jayne Ewing, Allison Jayne. The last name is Ewing. Find her on LinkedIn, TikTok, and her site, inspiredlifetapping.com. Inspiredlifetapping.com, where you'll also find a free copy of her book, Find Love Again, Learn to Date Like a Goddess. Cafe Networking is brought to us by Focus MI Market Intelligence, an agricultural market research specialist in Brazil. More information at focusmi.com. Talk to Tom, talk to the world. Thanks for listening. Until the next time here at Cafe and Networking Podcast.